These are some of the most disturbing crimes that happen in the Dota 2 community, from teenage hackers to real-world fights and lives lost over a game. It just gets worse as the list goes on. On the afternoon of Sunday, February 23, 2014, a grade 5 student from the Philippines named Michael Jericho Surio was playing video games just like he usually did on weekends. But at some point during that day, he would walk into an unfinished construction site just steps away from his home and would never walk back out. For most Filipino boys in primary school like Michael, Sundays usually meant going to an internet cafe. These cafes were called computer shops by the locals and were where Filipino kids went after school and on weekends, paid a few cents an hour and pulled up a plastic chair and lost themselves in whatever game had their attention that week. And in 2014, internet cafes across the country were notorious for having a lot of drama caused by trash talk between players, accusations of cheating, and disputes over items in matches that would sometimes even escalate to physical violence. And videos would regularly circulate online where kids can be seen throwing chairs at each other, shoving around monitors, and fistfights breaking out mid-game over a bad round or a stolen kill. And most of the time it ended there, but sometimes the troublemakers got thrown out, only to come back the very next day. At the cafe, Michael bonded with other boys over Dota games, and some old rivalries he had in common with some of the other regulars. This was where he built a close friendship with a 16-year-old that we'll refer to as Mark. Like most of the boys in the local internet cafe, Mark and Michael kept coming back to Dota. Dota was a free multiplayer game, but it ran on a real economy, where two teams of 5 players competed to destroy each other's base, and players earned or purchased cosmetic items, character skins, special effects, rare animations, which could be listed and sold on the Steam marketplace for real money. Now, a rare item could be worth hundreds of dollars, and for teenagers in a working class neighborhood in the Philippines, where most parents bought home less than $200 a month, owning a Dota account was basically like owning a business. Now, Mark had built up his account over years of gameplay, with an impressive item collection, and had a profile that carried actual value to him, and he regularly bought and sold items on the open market for cash. But little did he know that his friend Michael had eyes on his account. A few days before that Sunday, someone hacked into Mark's account, and he immediately suspected Michael, as he was the only one who'd played with him long enough that they shared their login details. Now, whether Michael did it as a prank or to steal Mark's items, or simply out of curiosity, was never made fully clear, but by the time the two of them met up that afternoon, Mark already knew what Michael had done. The boys walked together, and Mark led Michael toward the unfinished construction site 20 steps behind Michael's home. It was a hollow shell of concrete and rebar, open to the sky, where no one could hear them. And as soon as the boys got into the construction site, Mark confronted Michael for hacking his Dota account. The argument escalated into a fight, and Mark slammed Michael's head against the wall, hard enough to smear the concrete with blood. Then he pulled out a knife, and by the time he was done, 11-year-old Michael had been stabbed 40 times. Michael never came home that evening, and so his mother got worried and went out to look for him. And as she passed by the construction site behind her home, she found him on the ground. He'd already been dead for hours, and she could barely recognize her own son. The Philippine National Police were called to the scene, and an investigation was launched immediately by Inspector Elma Estacio. A neighbor had last seen Michael walking with Mark that afternoon, so Mark was brought in for questioning, but he lied and told the police that he hadn't seen Michael that day at all. However, as investigators retraced the scene, they found a trail of blood drops running from the construction site all the way to Mark's front door. And when they got there and searched the house, they also found shorts and a shirt soaked in blood. The police also noticed that Mark's hands had deep cut marks, the kind you get from gripping a knife so hard that the blade works its way back toward you. And Mark had no explanation for any of it and was then taken into custody. And because Mark was just 16 at the time, he wasn't processed through the adult criminal justice system. Under the Philippines Juvenile Justice and Welfare Act, minors are prioritized for rehabilitation over punishment. And because of this, Mark was transferred to the Department of Social Welfare and Development. And when the story first broke in the Philippine Daily Inquirer on February 26th, the motive was misreported as a hacked Facebook account rather than a Dota account, which police quickly corrected. By February 27th, 4 days after Michael's death, a formal murder charge was filed against Mark through the juvenile justice system. The same day, ABS-CBN, the Philippines' largest national TV network, aired a segment on TV Patrol under the title Dota Game Eyed Behind Boy's Murder, featuring an interview with Michael's family who wanted Mark to be held accountable, whether he was a minor or not. Now, within 2 days, the story crossed into international news, when a technology and media news site called Tech in Asia published a detailed English language breakdown of Dota 2's item economy, giving a global audience context for why an account could carry real monetary value. gaming outlets picked it up, and Reddit's Dota 2 community was flooded with threads of shock, grief, and frustration. One commenter reflecting on their experience in Philippine internet cafes wrote, "It was barbaric. I didn't know how the hell I survived that kind of atmosphere when I was younger." Now in the months following Michael's death in 2014, many districts across the Philippines banned Dota 2 from internet cafes, using this case as a reason. Now the case eventually moved beyond the cafe bans, when Michael's name actually ended up in academic papers on gaming addiction and youth aggression. Mark's outcome was never made public due to the Philippines' juvenile justice proceedings being sealed by law. But as brutal as this case was, what comes next involved a meme coin scam that jumped across multiple channels and pulled in a number that will absolutely blow your mind.
La chaîne YouTube officielle de Dota 2 a été hackée pour vendre un faux meme coin.
For over a decade, the official Dota 2 YouTube channel had been posting exactly what its 1.27 million subscribers expected: patch notes and tournament highlights, nothing else. Then on the evening of October 15th, 2025, something appeared on it that had absolutely no business being there. Around 10 PM UTC, hackers seized control of Valve's official Dota 2 YouTube channel and immediately put up a livestream. The stream's thumbnail showed a polished, official-looking graphic of the Dota 2 logo stamped onto a coin, and it ran under the title Dota 2 Launch Official Meme Coin, hurry up. And it had looping promotional footage alongside QR codes and direct links to a pump.fun purchase page. Pump.fun is a website where anyone can create and trade meme coins, which are basically joke cryptocurrencies that people buy, not because they do anything useful, but because they're funny or trending, and everyone's hoping to make money off of the hype. Hours before the attack itself, the hackers had already created a fake cryptocurrency called Dota 2 Coin and made it look like Valve, the company behind Dota 2, had launched it. They own almost all of the coins in circulation, over 98%, so they had total control over the supply. The idea was basically this: let other people start buying it, and that would push the price up, and then the hackers themselves would sell their coins at a higher price. And once they sold everything, they would cash out and leave, while everyone else was left holding a coin that suddenly lost its value. Now getting control of a channel like that was easier than what most people would think. The hack itself started with a tactic that had been spreading across YouTube for about a year, called streamjacking, where basically the hackers would send a fake sponsorship email to a big channel, wait for someone on the team to click the wrong link, and that was it. The moment someone did, the hackers were in, and once inside, the hackers would launch a fraudulent cryptocurrency livestream to whatever audience the channel had built, pushing viewers to buy a crypto token before anyone could pull them down. Google's own threat analysis group had been documenting this playbook for years, because the same scam had already been used to hijack or imitate trusted accounts, including the Supreme Court of India's channel and fake profiles pretending to be the famous American entrepreneur and engineer Steve Wozniak, and even Elon Musk. Now Steve, whose name was used by hackers to trick people into sending cryptocurrency after promising fake double your money return, had this to say.
Some people said they lost their life savings.
And right after the Dota 2 channel went down, the YouTube account that belonged to ESL Counter-Strike, which is one of the largest esports organizations in the world, was also hacked. Their channel went live with a fake stream featuring a manipulated clip of Valve's founder, Gabe Newell, that was edited from an old Steam Deck interview in such a way that made it look like he was endorsing a crypto launch. A QR code sat in the corner of the video the entire time, and anyone who scanned it was sent to a phishing page, which is basically a web page that appears to belong to a well-known trusted organization, but is actually a fake, where the person would then be asked to connect their crypto wallets, which would be drained of everything if someone actually went ahead and did it, which of course a lot of people did. Now shortly after, several more esports YouTube channels were also hacked, including Blast Premier and Blast Rainbow Six, as well as the Esports World Cup Foundation channel. The attackers ran identical crypto scam live streams across all of them, using the same video and QR code. At least one of those streams reached over 60,000 views in under 20 minutes, before it was taken down, likely by YouTube or the channel owner after regaining access. And then the channel of the esports league, called Mobile Legends MPL Indonesia, was also hit, pulling the attack out of PC esports entirely and into the mobile gaming audience, a completely different demographic, none of whom had any reason to suspect the presence of any meme coin scams going on, and YouTube decided to suspend their channel outright. Now while all of that was unfolding, back on the Dota 2 channel, the original thread was closing within minutes. The community members were buying the coins, and every purchase pushed the price up, which made it look more real and made more people buy it. Now the coin's market value peaked somewhere between $7,000 and $9,000, just 30 or so minutes after the stream went live. Now simultaneously, Reddit warnings about the Dota 2 scam were already going up. The warnings spread fast enough that most viewers saw it before buying the token, and cross posts were already connecting the Dota 2 attack to the ESL and Blast Premier hits. And on X, a screenshot warning about the fraudulent stream, posted less than 5 minutes after it went live, pulled in 63,000 views on its own. But it was already too late, because soon the hackers hackers cashed out all the money at once, and because they were holding almost the entire supply, that single move wiped out most of the value of the Dota 2 coin in minutes. Now at approximately 11 PM, 1 hour after the Dota 2 channel was hijacked, the PGL, which organizes official Dota 2 tournaments, was taken over the same way. These tournaments are major championships where the best players in the world compete for prize pools that can reach into the millions. On PGL's channel, the hackers ran a fake Bitcoin giveaway, impersonating MicroStrategy chairman Michael Saylor, who is a prominent Bitcoin advocate. The fraudulent stream pulled in over 2,000 views before it was taken down by either PGL or YouTube themselves. Now within 2 hours, Valve and YouTube regained control of all compromised channels and deleted all of the fraudulent live streams. No user data was reported breached as the attack was limited to live stream access. Now Valve issued no public statement or even security advisory, and Redditors took notice of this, with one user posting, "WTF is Valve doing?" Now streamjacking operations pulling off even a fraction of this scale had previously netted serious money. One group running fake crypto giveaway streams on YouTube made over $1.6 million from 165,000 viewers, and separate campaigns involving hijacked YouTube channels brought in potential earnings of over $500,000 from Bitcoin and Ethereum alone. Now most people never even knew the operation happened at all, but the next case was impossible to miss. One of China's most promising Dota 2 players made a single decision on a single night, and by morning, his entire career was gone.
One player for Team Aster has actually been removed from the Singapore major because he was down so bad that he ended up soliciting a dude in China.
On the night of March 24th, 2021, a professional Dota 2 player opened an app on his phone, arranged to meet a woman in a Shanghai apartment, and showed up with $460 in hand. And 2 days later, his team flew to Singapore to compete in a major global tournament without him. The player was BoBoKa Ji Biao, who had been playing professional Dota since 2015. He worked his way up through smaller Chinese organizations before landing at Invictus Gaming, which is one of the biggest established names in Chinese esports. At Invictus, he played position 4, which is basically the supporting player, and he was exceptionally good at it. The way Dota 2 works competitively is that teams grind through regional majors throughout the year, all in hopes of earning a spot at the International, which is the game's world championship. It's where tens of thousands of fans pack a stadium and a prize pool that has climbed as high as $34 million, making it the largest in the history of competitive gaming. By 2017, BoBoKa was finishing top 4 at majors with $3 million prize pools, and those results made him one of the most sought-after supports in China. Then, in March 2021, 24-year-old BoBoKa was preparing for the One Esports Singapore Major, which is one of the most important tournaments in Dota 2, with a $500,000 prize pool up for grabs. Then, on the night of March 24th, he made a decision that would change everything. He logged into a banned escort app on his phone and arranged to meet a woman for 3,000 yuan, which is roughly $460. He had no idea that Shanghai police had already set up at the apartment before he arrived. Accounts on Chinese forums like Weibo described it as an ambush on a specific address, though whether it was a routine vice operation or a targeted sting was never made clear. And BoBoKa walked straight into it. One of the officers on the scene reportedly recognized him and considered letting him go, but it was too late. He had already told the officers he'd paid the money, and there was no walking back. In China, that admission was enough, and it was legally classified as an incomplete transaction, meaning the act itself had not taken place, and therefore the standard charge was an administrative violation, not a criminal offense. That meant he didn't have to go to court or have any sort of criminal record registered, but instead he'd have to serve a short detention and a fine up to $760. While the legal proceedings went on, BoBoKa's team was informed about his arrest, and they boarded their flight to Singapore, where the major competition would be held without him. For the next 2 days, the organization said nothing. Then, on March 26th, Team Aster, which is the group he belonged to, posted a statement on Weibo, which is the biggest social media platform in China, confirming that BoBoKa would miss the Singapore major due to sudden personal reasons. No further details were given that connected the announcement to anything that happened in Shanghai. With BoBoKa suddenly gone, Aster was left scrambling. In an act of sheer desperation, they turned to the only option they had left: their own coach, Cheng Mad Han, who had to step in to fill the position 4 role. Barely 24 hours after Aster confirmed BoBoKa's absence, reports were already moving through Chinese social media. Then the South GG Facebook page, a page that had built its entire reputation on being first to spread unverified gossip, posted that BoBoKa had been arrested in Shanghai for incomplete. Soon after, the rumors crossed to Reddit. 15 players missed the Singapore Major, 14 of them due to positive COVID-19 tests. But BoBoKa was the one whose absence had nothing to do with the virus. Esports personalities like Jake Lucky said on Twitter, "Rumors say BoBoKa has been arrested for soliciting a..." British esports journalist Richard Lewis kept it to one line, "Wild if true." But surprisingly, Team Aster finished 5th to 6th with Mad in the lineup and won around $25,000 in prize money. Back in Shanghai, BoBoKa sat through his detention for somewhere between 10 and 15 days. Then on April 25th, 2021, exactly 1 month after the arrest, BoBoKa was reinstated to Team Aster's active roster with his first match back coming in the I-League, China's regional Dota 2 competition, where the country's top teams battle it out for rankings and prize money, and his opponents were E-Home, one of China's most decorated organizations in the scene, and Aster won. BoBoKa played with Team Aster through 2022 and into 2023, going on to finish 4th at the International 2022 and push his career earnings past $1.15 million. When he eventually left the team in 2023, for reasons that had nothing to do with his arrest, he signed with Yakult Brothers, a Chinese Dota 2 team named after the popular Japanese probiotic drink brand. He's still playing with them today. The team competed at the International 2025 and has tournaments lined up through 2026. But not every story ends with a comeback. The men in this next case spent years using their position to corner women who were new to the Dota 2 community. And when those women finally came together to expose them, their entire careers collapsed overnight.
Hello everybody, welcome to a honestly quite serious subject matter, and I'm not even gonna joke about it. What we're gonna talk about today is harassment of women in esports, specifically Dota.
An anonymous Twitter account posted a thread on the evening of June 21st, 2020, accusing one of the most well-known voices in Dota 2 of drugging and attacking women at the game's biggest tournament. Little did anyone know, this thread was about to tear through the industry and drag 3 of the most powerful men in gaming into the spotlight. The post was made through an X account called @CoFactorsTrudel and was anonymous, so I'll be calling the person behind the account Jane. In her post, Jane described a party at the International in Seattle in 2017, which was the 7th annual Dota 2 Esports World Championship tournament and was where the incident took place. The post then went on to outline the setting, stating that the person involved was a caster and, most importantly, the victim was Jane herself. To understand why these details mattered, you need to understand what a caster actually is. Like in football or basketball, the International has commentators, but in Dota 2, they're celebrities who are also known as casters. They have followings, influence, and more than anything else, they have access to events, to teams, and to every opportunity that exists inside that world. If one of those casters decided to open a door for you, your whole career could change overnight. And if they decided to close it, you might never find another way in. So when the post specified a caster, the community knew exactly what kind of power that person held. Dota 2 fans began speculating, and the first person they suspected was caster Grant Harris. Now, Grant had been around competitive gaming since 2011, and he started out as a player before moving into casting. By the mid-2010s, he had become one of the most familiar voices in North American Dota 2, and in October 2017, Evil Geniuses, which is one of the biggest organizations in the scene, signed him as a content creator and streamer, and he was at every major event and had made important connections throughout the industry. But what was happening behind that surface was a different story. And Grant's name first came up because he had already built a reputation for being extremely problematic. He abused alcohol and had a history of harassing other players and streamers. On top of that, he was also notorious for being a womanizer. Since 2016, warnings about Grant had been circulating amongst the women in the Dota community, but none of it had ever made it past those private conversations. And that changed the moment Jane's Twitter post went up. At Wicked's Cosplay, a cosplayer and activist, shared the posts almost immediately, driving more traffic to the posts. On June 22nd, Grant replied to Jane's thread with an apology.
No one should ever feel uncomfortable or slimy in any situation or at an event. What I did is inexcusable, alcohol or not, and I sincerely do apologize for the pain I've put you through. Thank you for opening up to me when I messaged you. You didn't have to.
Shortly after, Jane responded,
Grant, you should know that someone else has reached out to me to say that you assaulted them. I don't know the specifics, but it is possible I'm not the only person you need to be making amends with right now.
Within hours, this Twitter thread became flooded with replies and shares. A former Dota 2 coach named Anthony Scant stepped in to speak on behalf of Llama Down Under, a fast-rising Dota 2 caster who hadn't felt ready to speak publicly herself and was the person Jane mentioned had reached out to her. Anthony tweeted,
We've all been far too quiet for far too long about Grant. He has for years shown a consistent pattern of behavior of harassing and degrading women. Most notable case we know about is Llama Down Under. She was a fast-rising Dota 2 caster, and then she wasn't. Grant did that.
One day later, Michelle Moxie Song, a popular caster, tweeted,
Nobody should pretend Dota was ever a haven for women, and nobody should pretend they didn't already know.
Then, on June 23rd, less than 48 hours after that first post went up, Grant published a public statement saying he was taking full responsibility and leaving esports permanently. Just like that, a career built over nearly a decade of casting, content creation and community presence was over in 2 days. The same day, Evil Geniuses also terminated his contract, citing a zero-tolerance policy as the reason. And then, before the dust from Grant's exit had even settled, someone else came forward. On the same day, June 23rd, a streamer named Ashney Christ came forward with more serious allegations. She posted a detailed Twitlonger post about Andrew Campbell, whose username was Ziori. He was an American commentator and host, co-founder of the Dota 2 media company Moonduck TV, and a familiar face across years of major event coverage. Ashley Christ's post detailed a pattern of pressure that stretched across multiple events and visits. While her original Twitlonger is gone and no full cached version exists anywhere online, her post ended with,
Looking back, I wish I knew so many things. I wish I knew if it fell off. It probably was. I wish I knew if it wasn't a hell yes, it was a hell no. I wish I knew assault could be subtle.
Then on June 24th, 2020, a female coach and analyst, Muriel Hausman, known online as Kipspool, came forward to back Ashley Christ up. At the time, she was also fighting breast cancer and had spent years building a career in esports, providing coaching support to professional teams including Vega Squadron and TNC. Muriel posted,
F it. Time to back up more stories. The @AshneyChrist story about Ziori is true. He tried the exact same thing with me back at TI5. Very systematic. Talk to a new girl, do them a favor, pressure, try again at a second occasion. He stopped by my place in NL, the Netherlands, on a Euro trip.
Andrew eventually released a video acknowledging what he called unintentional patterns and said he wanted to grow from it. No organization formally removed him, and there was no public termination, although he disappeared from the scene entirely after that. But it wasn't over just yet, because then a name surfaced that nobody was prepared for: caster Toby Dawson. Online, Toby went by the username Toby1 and was born and raised in Australia. If you watched Dota 2 at any point during its prime, you heard his voice, because he was one of the most successful casters in Dota 2's history. The man was trusted enough that his voice was used inside the game by Valve, the company that owns the game. He had been casting competitive Dota, first the original Warcraft 3 mod, then Dota 2, since 2003. He had been doing this for nearly 2 decades by the time the summer of 2020 arrived. To a huge portion of the community, his voice was just as important as the game itself. Before anyone had formally accused him of anything, a thread appeared on Reddit on June 23rd, 2020, asking,
Now that we're calling out people, can we finally call out Toby1?
It called out his problematic behavior over the years. No formal allegations emerged until June 25th, 2020, when Toby posted on both Twitter and Reddit acknowledging what he called horrible actions and got out in front of the accusations. Within hours of Toby's post going up, Maruna, a Dutch cosplayer and the long-term partner of another well-known Dota caster named Cinderin, came forward. She titled her tweet-longer post,
"Toby1 did not take no for an answer."
And it said,
"The person who could not take no for an answer and initiated intimate activity with me against my clear and repeated wishes is Toby1 Dawson. Since you are so good at keeping me anonymous, we were never in a relationship. Good job at completely ignoring the part where you started intimate activities, even though I told you I didn't want to, not in the first night. You disregarded this as I was asleep and woke up to you doing things. I do not wish to go further into detail. Toby, I hope your daughter meets better men."
And to make matters worse, this incident had happened in 2011 when Minura was just 18 years old, whereas Toby1 was almost a decade older. The same day, caster Austin Capitalist Walsh, a longtime colleague of Toby1's, posted on Twitter,
"It's clear Toby's actions are more than being a socially awkward person. That's what I believed once. I don't know who you are. I don't know what horrible actions he's committed. I don't know if this will mean anything to you. If you come out publicly, I will support you."
An artist named Botjira replied to that tweet saying,
"He pinned me down in a hotel room. I almost didn't escape."
The responses came fast. Cinderin cut ties with Toby1 the same day Maruna came forward and Austin followed. Beyond the Summit, which is one of the most prominent tournament organizers in the Dota 2 scene, blacklisted him entirely. His talent agency, Code Red, dropped him as a client. One by one, every professional relationship he had built over 17 years collapsed. Then Valve took action and removed Toby's voice lines from the TI-10 Battle Pass, the annual in-game purchase millions of Dota fans buy every year to support the International. On June 25th, 2020, Valve pushed a small unannounced update to make the change. After June 25th, Toby was simply gone as if he never existed. 8 days later, on July 2nd, he published a final statement. He called the allegations
"Personal history stripped of all context, warped with fiction."
He said,
"I'm not guilty of any criminal offense."
He told the women accusing him to take it to court, and then he announced he was leaving esports permanently anyway. He signed it off with his own famous catchphrase,
"Never again in the history of Dota."
But crimes in Dota 2 aren't just limited to casters and hackers. The next one started with a livestream insult thrown at a teammate and ended with bruised faces.
Is kind of a weird one. So there's a Reddit thread that came out saying Gabby is out of Blacklist Rivalry, reportedly punched by Abed in the face. Okay. And supposedly Abed got very angry because that's a sore spot for him, and he went and punched Gabby in the face.
In a photography studio in Manila, sometime between May 10th and May 13th, 2024, a professional Dota 2 player crossed a room and punched his teammate in the face nearly 5 times before he was stopped. But that punch didn't come out of nowhere. It had been building for months. 4 months earlier, in January 2024, Blacklist Rivalry, a Philippines-based esports organization, announced their new roster. At the center of it was Abed Yusop, a 23-year-old player returning home to the Philippines after playing for T1 and Liquid Team in Europe, with over $1.8 million in career earnings. Joining him as carry, the player responsible for dealing damage and closing out games was 22-year-old Kim Gabby Santos Villafuerte. He had just helped Blacklist finish 3rd place at the International 2023, the biggest Dota 2 tournament in the world, and winning over $200,000 in the process. Gabby's popularity extended well beyond tournament results. He was an active streamer with a loyal following on streaming platforms Kick and Twitch. He played with visible aggression and made no effort to hide it, on or off server. Gabby was also known for trash-talking anyone, opponents, strangers in public matches, and teammates included. Gabby and Abed had known each other long before Blacklist. They exchanged jerseys in 2021, 3 years before they became teammates, and it was no secret that Gabby joined Blacklist Rivalry because of Abed. With this roster, Blacklist was confident they could qualify for the Riyadh Masters, one of the most important tournaments of the season. And for 4 months, it looked like they could easily qualify with their strong team. But what nobody knew was that Gabby was about to use his friendship with Abed against him. In early May 2024, during a livestream watched by hundreds, Gabby exposed something about Abed that only the people closest to him knew. It started in a casual pub match where Gabby deliberately used his character to block Abed from collecting gold. Abed laughed it off and continued playing. Toward the end of the game, Abed typed, "Good game, well played." But what Gabby typed back had nothing to do with the game. He called Abed Bungal, a Tagalog word meaning toothless, in all chat, visible to every player in the match and everybody watching his livestream. The audience ran with it immediately, flooding Abed's stream with mocking messages. Abed responded with a simple, "Huh?" and removed Gabby from their shared Discord server. Gabby read the responses and doubled down. He typed a sentence in Tagalog which roughly translated to, "You're handsome, but you're toothless." All of it happened on stream and Abed said nothing publicly. Between May 10th and May 13th, the Blacklist Rivalry squad gathered at a photoshoot studio in Manila for content creation ahead of the Riyadh Masters Southeast Asia closed qualifiers. It's basically a set of matches that would determine whether the team qualified for one of the most lucrative tournaments, the International. It was a straightforward session where you show up, take photos, film some promotional material, and leave. Blacklist Rivalry teammates and a content staff member named Zhao were in the room, but nobody was there to document what happened next. At some point during the session, Gabby was sitting on a couch watching the National Basketball Association while the players talked around him. Him and Abed were talking like everyone else, but the conversation turned into an argument because Abed was already frustrated. Abed started throwing words and Gabby responded. And then Abed crossed the room and punched Gabby in the side of the face between 3 to 5 times in total before he was stopped by a teammate. The fight didn't escalate further because Gabby didn't hit back and walked out of that studio with a visible cheek bruising and a swollen face that was still showing days later. Nobody in the room had participated in the argument and no footage from the incident was recorded or leaked. On May 14th, Gabby opened his kick stream with a title that translated from Tagalog as "Seething Inside." It started like any other stream. He was watching the NBA playoffs and reacting to the game. About 10 minutes in, he addressed the bruising on his face. Gabby told his audience that someone had punched him in the face. He didn't name Abed outright, but made an announcement that he was looking for a new team and unfollowed Abed on social media mid-stream. 15 more minutes into the stream, he pulled up the video call with Armel, a fellow Dota player, to show him the bruising still visible across his face. 1 hour after Gabby's stream, Redditors connected the dots between the insults and the incident and opened a thread titled, "Gabby out of Blacklist Rivalry, reportedly punched by Abed." By the end of the day, it was all over the online Dota 2 communities. The next day, on May 15th, Blacklist issued a brief official statement confirming the incident was Gabby and Abed's personal matter under internal review. The Dota 2 audiences read this as a non-answer and waited for something more specific. The wait lasted 5 days. On May 21st, Blacklist CEO Trike Gutierrez sat down for an interview to give the organization's official response following the conclusion of that internal review. Both Abed and Gabby received equal fines. Trike described the amount as enough to buy a car, and every penny was donated to charity rather than being kept by the organization. Gabby bore responsibility for the mockery, Abed for the physical response, and neither was treated as a sole party at fault. Words have weight, Trike said. With the matter settled internally, both players returned to competing. They were retained for the Riyadh Masters qualifiers, which began on May 25th. A stand-in carry named Hanuel and a new addition named Natsumi were brought in to adjust the lineup. Blacklist advanced through the early stages but failed to secure a spot at the Riyadh Masters itself. By early June, 3 weeks after the incident, Trike had reportedly mediated a resolution between the two players directly, and the community received word that the situation had been settled. Both stayed on through the Esports World Cup qualifiers. This case was about two people who knew each other, with history between them and a reason. The next case had none of that. A teenager with no grudges or connections, just a keyboard, a target, and the kind of confidence that lasted until the FBI knocked on his door.
So we got 4 cops this time. Wait, is it turned on? Yes, it is. All right. So we have four cops that came. Apparently someone made a call to the police department.
A group of teenagers sat at their computers on December 30th, 2013, ready to hack some of the biggest gaming companies in the world, and they got on Twitter to narrate every second of it in real time. It all began in 2011, when a 15-year-old kid from Utah named Austin Thompson was introduced to a free tool called the Low Orbital Ion Cannon, also known as the LOIC, by a friend. The LOIC is a tool that anyone with a basic internet connection could download and point at a website to flood it with traffic until it fell over. It facilitates DDoS, or distributed denial of service attacks, which work like a traffic jam. A road can only handle so many cars at once, and when you flood it with more cars than it was built for, everything stops. DDoS attacks do the same thing to internet servers, except instead of cars, it's junk data requests, and instead of a road, it's the infrastructure keeping a website or game server online. Whoever is on the other end of the flood gets knocked offline until the attack stops, or they can reroute around it. It doesn't require breaking into or stealing anything, it just requires pointing enough traffic at a target until it collapses. Teenagers, hacktivists, and many more who had no idea what they were doing used it. Austin was one of those people, first. But he didn't stay a beginner for long. By 2013, 2 years after picking up the LOIC, he had moved from using the free tools to writing his own botnet malware. This malware was a software that quietly infected computers across the internet and recruited them into a network he controlled. That network could then be directed at any target he chose. And Austin wasn't doing this alone. With a few close friends, he formed a crew called Derp Trolling, 3 or 4 members total, scattered across the US, Sweden, and the UK. Austin was the leader, the primary coder, and the public face. They ran a Twitter account, @Derp Trolling, where they announced attacks, taunted victims, and broadcast what they were doing in real time. They even maintained a public phone hotline where anyone could call in and request a target. Between 2011 and mid-2013, the group went after anyone they felt like. Gaming platforms like Quake Live, World of Tanks, EVE Online, RuneScape, and Minecraft servers all got knocked offline. At one point, they knocked the website of North Korea's central news agency offline, and they even went after the Westboro Baptist Church. The attacks caused hours of disruption, but nobody in the media was paying much attention, and law enforcement was not taking any actions against them. On December 27, 2013, a voicemail landed on the group's public hotline. The unidentified caller's instructions were straightforward.
Get Phantom Lord.
For context, Phantom Lord, whose real name was James Varga, was one of the more prominent gaming streamers on Twitch at the time, broadcasting League of Legends and Dota 2 to large audiences, and it was the peak of the gaming calendar, Christmas and New Year holiday period, when millions of people were home with new consoles and nowhere to be. Derp Trolling accepted the request and prepared for the takedown for 3 days. On December 30th, 2013, they moved and narrated every second of it on Twitter. At approximately 4:07 PM GMT, @Derp Trolling posted a tweet saying,
"Something special planned for League of Legends."
Minutes later, they hit Riot Games' network provider, Internap, directly, which is the infrastructure holding everything together. Riot Games is the developer company behind League of Legends, in case you didn't know. The game went down across North America, Europe, and Oceania all at once, and the website, forums, and everything collapsed alongside it. And they didn't stop at League of Legends. From 5 PM onwards, they attacked Blizzard's Battle.net, the online platform that runs games like World of Warcraft and Call of Duty. Then EA, the Electronic Arts gaming platform where millions of players access their game libraries, went down too. In the span of a single afternoon, holiday gaming across 3 of the biggest platforms in the world had collapsed. And the whole time, @Derp Trolling was on Twitter announcing every takedown in real time. Then came the live stream. Phantom Lord was live on Twitch, pulling over 100,000 viewers as the chaos unfolded around him. Through the stream chat, Austin began negotiating with him directly in front of the entire audience. The deal was simple. If Phantom Lord won his current Dota 2 match, the servers would stay up, but if he lost, they would go down. Phantom Lord ended up losing, and Austin announced on X,
"Phantom Lord, no Dota for you."
At approximately 9:12 PM GMT, Dota 2 servers were hit and crashed. Phantom Lord reportedly begged on stream beforehand,
"Don't DDoS Dota.
but Austin had already decided the outcome the moment he lost, and he was not stopping anytime soon. On the livestream, Austin convinced Phantom Lord to load up Club Penguin, which is Disney's children's online game, on stream. The moment Phantom Lord loaded it up, Club Penguin's entire platform was taken offline. In a final move, Derp found Phantom Lord's address and posted it on X, and soon, unwanted pizza deliveries began arriving at his door. Then someone placed a fake emergency call to the Los Angeles Police Department, reporting a hostage situation at the Los Angeles address. 6 officers responded and Phantom Lord was home when they arrived. The hoax was confirmed quickly, but he later described the experience as one of the most frightening moments of his life. By the next day, on December 31st, Riot Games officially confirmed a DDoS attack, but Derp wasn't done there. Over New Year's Eve and into 2014, Derp hit Steam, Valve, and Sony's PlayStation network with further attacks during another peak gaming window. It seemed like nothing could stop them. Until early 2014, when a group of rival hackers tracked down Austin's real identity by digging through his EA Origin account. He signed up with his real name and they published all of his personal information online. Once his real name and address were out there for the world to see, things started falling apart fast. Austin posted on the Derp Trolling Twitter account that federal agents had shown up at his house and that he managed to slip out through a bathroom window. After that, the Derp Trolling attacks just stopped. The group went quiet through the first half of 2014 and dissolved entirely by mid-year, with none of its other members ever being publicly identified or charged. Austin Thompson was 17 years old when the December 2013 attacks happened. The case was eventually picked up by the FBI's San Diego field office, likely because Sony Online Entertainment, one of the biggest victims, was based there. By the time the FBI showed up at his door in the summer of 2018, Austin was 22 years old and more than 4 years had passed. On November 6, 2018, Austin pleaded guilty to 1 count of intentional damage to a protected computer. Among the evidence presented were his own @Derp Trolling tweets, the real-time boasts and taunts he had broadcasted throughout the attacks. On July 2nd, 2019, Judge Jeffrey T. Miller sentenced Austin to 27 months in federal prison, 3 years of supervised release, and $95,000 in restitution, paid not to Sony, but to Daybreak Games, which Sony Online Entertainment had since been renamed. He could have faced up to 10 years and a $250,000 fine under the charge of damage to a protected computer, but the judge went well below that. Austin's age at the time of the attacks was cited as a factor, though the judge made it clear that it wasn't mercy. His exact words were that Austin was
a rare juvenile deserving of serious consequences.
Austin began his sentence on August 23, 2019, and he is presumed to have been released around 2021. He has made no public statements since his sentencing and has not been connected to any further incidents. The @Derp Trolling account was suspended by X, and the phone hotline is long gone. But the next person didn't go after the players. He went after the game itself, and what he left behind raised more questions than answers.
4 custom Dota 2 game modes uploaded to the Steam Workshop allowed a hacker to install backdoors on the computers of other players.
In January 2023, a cybersecurity researcher discovered something malicious that had been sitting inside Dota 2's mod library since March 2022, a fully functional cyber attack hidden inside a custom game mode. To understand how it stayed hidden for so long, you need to know what Steam Workshop is and how it works. It's a place where players upload and share custom add-ons for games. Think of it like a public library anyone can contribute to. Hundreds of mods or modifications get uploaded and abandoned every month, which is exactly why nobody looked twice at this one. The mod was called Test Add-on Please Ignore, and those who stumbled upon it assumed it was some hobbyist messing around with a basic game mode. It had almost no subscribers, no real description, nothing that would make you look twice. But it wasn't a test add-on. It had been placed there deliberately to hack Dota 2's mod system. Since no one ever found out who was behind this, I'll call them Lua, after the file they left behind. When players build custom game modes for Dota 2, the game needs an engine that can actually read and run that code. Valve uses a piece of software for this called V8, which is the same engine that powers Google Chrome. In December 2018, Valve locked in a specific version of V8 inside Dota 2 and moved on. The problem is that Google never stopped updating V8 after that. Every time a security flaw was found, Google patched it and pushed the fix to Chrome. But Dota 2's version just sat there. frozen in December 2018, quietly collecting every vulnerability that the security community discovered and fixed over the next 4 years. Nobody at Valve appeared to notice the flaw, or if they did, nothing was done about it. Then, in early March 2022, test add-on Please Ignore was suddenly updated. Lua had taken that exact V8 flaw and quietly buried it inside the mod. Right alongside it, they dropped a server-side script, meaning it ran on the game's server, not on your PC, so players had zero control over it and no way to block it, with almost no attempt at hiding what it was, and named it evil.lua. The script was basically a test to see if Lua could run commands and pull data from someone else's computer. That V8 flaw gave Lua a way to reach into the computer's memory and read or write whatever they wanted. Once that door was open, Lua could drop their own code directly into the machine and run it. Whatever came next, installing software, stealing files, logging passwords, was entirely up to them. About 10 days after the first mod was updated, 3 new mods appeared on Steam Workshop. They were called Overdog No Annoying Heroes, Custom Hero Brawl, and Overthrow RTZ Edition X10 XP. The last one using a name of a well-known professional Dota 2 player, RTZ, which may have been an attempt to pull in subscribers through name recognition. All 3 came from the same account and carried the same backdoor, a hidden way into a computer system that bypassed normal security. But this time the comments and the obvious naming were gone. Each backdoor was about 20 lines of code, designed to do one thing: send a signal out to a server Lua controlled and wait for instructions. Valve had already blocked mods from connecting directly to the outside internet, which made sense. But Lua had done their homework. They found a different channel in the mod system that Valve's block didn't cover and built the entire workaround around it. All 4 mods went through Steam Workshop's moderation process without a flag. Valve's review system checks for offensive content and copyright issues. It does not scan for hidden malicious code, which is how all 4 mods went live without a flag. And then, at some point after that, Lua's server went offline. Whether the server shutdown was on purpose or just failed on its own has never been confirmed. The backdoors were built into the mods and ready to go, but Lua had no way to actually send commands through them. Fewer than 200 people had subscribed to all 4 mods combined, but those mods stayed up on Steam Workshop for somewhere between 9 and 10 months after the attack window. And the person who eventually found them wasn't specifically looking for them. In late 2022 or early January 2023, a security researcher named Jan Wojciech, working at Avast Threat Labs, a major cybersecurity company, ran a large scan of files across Steam Workshop as a part of routine security work. That scan turned up the code hidden inside test add-on Please Ignore, and from there he traced the same backdoor structure across the other 3 mods. He documented the full attack chain and reported directly to Valve. On January 12, 2023, Valve pushed an emergency update on V8 to change it to a current version in a single mandatory patch. That closed over 4 years of accumulated vulnerabilities at once. All 4 mods were removed from Steam Workshop, and Valve reached out individually to the fewer than 200 users who had subscribed to them. Valve made no public statement or security advisory afterward. Avast later said that once Valve was notified, they responded quickly and handled it professionally. But Lua was never identified. The server they used ran through a tunneling service, a service designed to hide where the connection was coming from, and that was already offline by the time Jan found the mods, so there was no trail to follow. But at least this hacker tried their best to stay hidden and succeeded. The next one didn't even bother. He went after Valve directly, and what he pulled off was so brazen it's hard to believe no one stopped him. Nearly 2 million players had their data stolen on July 10th, 2016, and nobody suspected a thing for 30 days. How the breach came to light is just as strange as the breach itself, because the person who cracked it open and told the world wasn't a security researcher, a journalist, or Valve. The place where the data was stolen from was dev.dota2.com, Valve's official developer forum, where Dota 2 modders, bug hunters, and hardcore players gathered. These were people who cared enough about the game to report bugs, share tools, and improve it, and every one of them had handed over an email address, a username, and a password to be there. The hacker who broke into it on July 10th did not need anything fancy to get in, and since his name has never been publicly released, I'll call him Hector. Basically, the forum ran on a piece of software called vBulletin, one of the most widely used forum platforms on the internet at the time. vBulletin had a known weakness, something called a structured query language (SQL) injection flaw. In simple terms, if you knew what you were doing, you could type a carefully crafted string of code into the right field and trick the database into handing over everything it held. And that's exactly what Hector did. And what he found waiting for him were nearly 2 million accounts. But here's where it gets interesting. When you make an account on any website, your password doesn't usually get stored as the actual word you typed. Instead, it gets scrambled into a long string of characters using something called a hashing method, so that even if someone steals the database, they theoretically just see a wall of gibberish instead of your real password. Dev.dota2.com used a method called MD5 for this, but by 2016, MD5 had already been declared useless by the security community. Computers at the time could tear through it at billions of attempts per second. Valve had added an extra layer of protection called salting, which scrambled the passwords further and made them harder to crack, but it still wasn't enough. And so, Hector now had the database and the scrambled passwords. And for the next 30 days, Valve had no idea any of it had happened. Users logged into the forum normally. They posted bug reports, discussed patches, shared modding resources. Nobody told them that their email address and usernames had already been taken. IP addresses were taken too, the kind of data that can roughly pinpoint where someone is posting from. Whatever Hector chose to do with that data in those 30 days, whether that was selling it, sitting on it, or circulating it through underground markets, nobody on the outside knew. The breach didn't even come to light through Valve, it came to light through a man named Jordan Evan Bloom. Jordan was 27 years old, from Thornhill, Ontario, with a physics degree and a lime green Lamborghini. He was the owner of a service called Leaked Source, a site that operated in a legal grey area, meaning it wasn't exactly legal, but it wasn't exactly illegal either. Leaked Source didn't steal the data itself. It collected data once it was already out there and let people search through it. On August 9th, the Dota 2 forum data landed in Jordan's hands. His analysts ran it through cracking tools against those MD5 hashes, and within hours they had recovered over 80% of the passwords in plain readable text. That meant if you didn't use the same password anywhere else, your email, your Steam account, your bank, someone now had the key. The same day, Leaked Source posted an article on their site laying out exactly what had happened. The scope of the breach, the cracked passwords, all of it. Valve found out by reading the same article as everyone else. And the timing couldn't have been worse. The International 2016 had started the day before and was drawing global viewership with a prize pool that had climbed past $20 million. It was the single most high-profile week in the game's competitive calendar, and right in the middle of it, Valve found itself managing a security crisis. On August 10th, a Dota forum administrator posted a public acknowledgement confirming the vulnerability had been patched, meaning the SQL injection flaw that let the hacker in had been found and fixed, so nobody could use the same method to break in again. Valve forcibly reset every forum user's password and put out a direct warning. Redditors had threads up the same day, pushing the password change message to anyone who might have missed the announcement. Users walked each other through enabling SteamGuard's two-factor authentication as an extra precaution. Security outlets including the BBC, ZDNet, and the Register covered it within days, pushing the story well outside gaming. And like I mentioned earlier, Hector's real identity has never been released and he simply disappeared after this. But the person who did face the consequence was Jordan. In January 2017, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police shut down Leaked Source entirely, and Jordan was charged with trafficking in identity information, unauthorized use of a computer, and mischief to data. Basically, selling people's personal details, accessing systems he had no right to, and tampering with data that wasn't his. He was facing up to 10 years in prison. But that's not how it ended. In 2019, Jordan's company, Defiant Tech, pleaded guilty on his behalf. Essentially, the company took the fall instead of Jordan personally. As part of the deal, the personal charges against Jordan were dropped entirely. He didn't see a single day in prison. Instead, he paid a fine of $247,000, roughly the amount he'd made running the site, and walked away. It took until May 23rd, 2024, almost 8 years later, for the breach to finally be added to Have I Been Pwned? It's a widely trusted breach notification database where anyone can check if their data has been compromised. For anyone whose credentials had been sitting in circulation since July 2016, that was the first time a mainstream service had ever told them.